Hey guys, it's Misty with My Paper Cuts, and I am back on with the next in my little series here of my process for making flowers. And I just wanted to walk you guys through how I will add color to create a custom color of flowers. Instead of, if I don't use my pattern paper or a specialty paper or something that is coming pre-colored. So one of my favorite things to do when I decide I just want to make flowers is I will get out my dies and a stack of white cardstock, and I will just die cut out a whole bunch of flowers and leaves in white. And I just have some poinsettias here for demonstration purposes, but this is what I will do. And then I'll just have this whole thing here, and I'll get out my little cleanup mat. This is one of those slippery mats from Tonic. It's nice because it's sticky on the back so it doesn't slide on your table. It's similar to the one that comes on the glass mat, but it's a larger size. And I will just get out some coloring mediums and just make the colors how I want. So I figured I would just share some of the things that I do to add color to my white flowers, so I can have the colors that I need. So the first option that I have is I could just add color with different watercolor mediums. So like I said, this is regular cardstock, so I don't want to add a ton of water. So sometimes I will just get out my markers and I will add colors with those, and I will just color them just like I would an image. I would scribble this on either this mat or on a little plastic palette like I showed you guys the other day. I don't tend to color directly on because I don't want any lines to remain, and since this is regular cardstock, it's not going to blend out with the water very well. So I will apply it watered down and control how I want that. That is one option for adding color that I will do pretty frequently. And then another option is Copics. And Copics are good, or any other alcohol marker, if you don't want any of the color to budge. So say for instance, you're making like a lily or a tulip, and you want to have that very fine detail and streaks and stuff left in. Copics are a good way to go, because when you spray it with water before you throw it through the machine in the mold, the color won't move with that water. So then all your detail will remain. And one of my favorite ways of doing that is with a yellow Copic, or whatever color you want the center of your flower to be. Is I will just take the marker and I will just flick out. Whoops, that went a little far, but I will just flick out. Harder to do on camera than and just add those kind of telltale streaks that we have in the centers of some of the flowers, and those won't budge. And you don't have to worry about this center right here, because that gets covered up when you assemble the flower. And one of the things you can do when you do Copics is, if you want those lines softened, just use your colorless blender and blend over it, and then you'll have a much softer line. But that is a really good way, especially like I like to do this with lilies and pink in the center with just a touch of the yellow, because you get that streak, and then you can add little brown dots that that are always present on those lilies, and that adds a lot of detail and dimension. And it's so much easier to do it before you run it through the machine than to try to do it after, when it's all textured and molded, not moldy, but it's all textured. It's not easy to get those fine, those little flicks that you would do that would give, that kind of, that effect that the flowers have coming out from the center. So that is one of the ways I will use my Copics. And then of course, if you want, Copics will add a very intense color. So let's say you're making something that you want a very, very red poinsettia for, and you don't want any of the color to blend out or bleed out or anything. You can always just color. And of course, you could blend this with multiple colors if you did want some shading. But if you just wanted some really bright, solid color flowers, and you didn't want that color to move in the process, alcohol markers are a really good way to go. So that is the alcohol markers. And then the most common way, and the way that I will often make flowers, is with my oxides or my distresses, or any other dye inks that are a little bit water soluble, and blending tools. Now for blending tools, there's so many options out there now. It just it's your preferred preference. Preferred preference. Oh goodness. Okay. It's your preference. of how you like to hold your tool, what your hands are capable of, etc., etc. So I myself like these blending tools. I always use the scrapbook.com gray ones for my oxide inks, and I use the black ones from Ranger for my regular distress inks. And I prefer those domed applicators from scrapbook.com. I just feel like you don't get as many lines when you're trying to blend. But this is my favorite tool, especially for adding color to flowers like these. And another one that I will show you in a second works as really well too, but I like to either come from the outside or from the inside out if you want more concentrated color on the center of your flower, or if you want a more concentrated color on the petal, of course you can go this way, and then your concentrated color is going to be at the tips of your flower. So that is a really fun way to add a nice soft color to your flowers. Now, since these are poinsettias, I would probably get a little heavier handed with this candied apple, and maybe add some of the fired brick in the centers to make it dark. And when it comes to the centers, I always like to use these finger daubers, or these long skinny ones with the two sponges on the ends. These are by Ranger. You can get these at Hobby Lobby. These finger daubers, you can get them on scrapbook.com. You can get them at Michael's. Amazon, you can buy them in huge bags full. These are nice and comfortable, but some people don't like using their finger in that way. They prefer to use like a pencil type hold when they're doing things. And these are good. And like I said, these are by Ranger, and you can get them at Hobby Lobby and such. I think 5 or 8 or something come in a pack. And lately all the rage, and I'm trying to get used to using them, are the brushes. Now, you can get these at Dollar Tree now in different shapes and sizes. There is one that is a long skinny one that is really good for adding details with your flowers. It's really, you can do like the center of the petal, which is pretty nice. These bigger, fatter ones are really good to do similar to what this tool does, because you can just drag color out, or drag color across, and you can get much lighter handed with these. And some people can't really hold on to these blending tools like this, but if they have something in their hand to put against their palm, it's easier for them. So it just depends on the preference you have for holding the tool that you're using. And there is one more option I do want to show, and that's these types of brushes. So these are like really, really popular right now. They are very comfortable to hold in your hand. You can hold them like this and go across your paper, or you can hold them like this. So it depends on what's comfortable with your grip as to how you can hold these, but these apply a lot of color very fast because they are a flat brush with a ton of bristles. So you can go across a whole flower in no time. You can find these. This one actually is from Tuesday Morning. It was in the makeup brush section, but it's identical to some of the ones they're selling as crafting brushes, and it was only $3.99, which is a lot cheaper than the ones they're selling that are identical. So again, you could probably find these on Amazon. They have mini ones. They have ones that are built just like this that are on handles again, that are flat instead of domed. It's your preference. But if you use, these oxide inks and such, they will respond to water. So when you mist, it will blend the color out further. So it's not going to stay exactly where you put it and exactly the way you want it. And it can not only distort your color a little bit, which I actually like, but it adds the droplet effect, which I didn't really leave that on there long enough to do it. But it will give you a more mottled effect when you do use this in the molding process. So keep that in mind when you are using inks like Distress or Distress Oxide or a regular dye ink. Most regular dye inks are water soluble, so they will have kind of a similar reaction to the Distress. But I will say the Distress Oxides, especially to me, make beautiful flowers. So that is my favorite option. And again, it's the same thing with the leaves. You can ink your leaves and do all of that before you mold them. So, and then the last thing I wanted to share is with the actual heartfelt carnations that I have, that I showed you earlier, and with all of their sets, they have the stamps with the matching dies. And the way that they show is that you will stamp and then you can blend in your color and then you will die cut. And that again gives you the option of, let's say you wanted to do the center on this, you could do the exact same thing. And when you die cut, that's all that will be there. Now, I never would have put green in the center, but that might not be a bad idea. And the same thing on the leaves. And when you cut them out, the dies are made so that they cut right to the line. So for instance, on this leaf here, it will cut right to that line with very little to no outline around the edge of the stamp. So all of this overlap that you are seeing here isn't going to be that noticeable because it is cutting so close. So you don't have to worry about getting messy like this and what that will impact. It actually adds to the full color effect of the flower. So when you're stamping with these and doing those types of things with any stamps, I recommend using hybrid. And the reason I like to use hybrid inks is because I could still use my Copics on here and this ink isn't going to budge. But I also know when I spray my water on that it's not going to budge either. So I'm not going to lose any of those stamped details. So using a hybrid ink is going to give me much more freedom in how I color these before I decide to make my flowers. So that is that. Oh, there is one more thing. Another option for adding color beforehand is like this embellishment mousse. I would not use like a thick texture paste or anything like that. You could use like a thin paint or like these embellishment mousses. I do have a thin, like this Bria Reese is also, it's a dimension, but if you put this on thin, it's super fine and soft. If you use anything like glitter paste or you actually put on glitter before you mold it, you're just going to have a mess because it's too stiff to run through the molding process. But if you have a soft medium like this, that would work okay too. I just make sure you don't put it on too thick. So that is the next step that I would do, is I would just sit and add color to all of my flowers. And then if they're not die cut out already like these, get them all die cut out. And then the next step would be the molding or the adding the texture with embossing folders and doing the assembly. So that will be my next video. And then I will have one more video after that that will be adding all the finishing touches that I add to the flowers at the end. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I hope it was what you were asking for, those of you who are asking me to do this. I hope it's giving you some insight into making your own flowers and saving the money. I mean, for a couple of sheets of cardstock and getting out your inks, you can make dozens of flowers that would cost you a pretty penny with Prima. And on that point, I also want to point out, for the cost of 4 or 5 sets of Prima flowers at retail price, you can pay for one of those heartfelt molds. So it may be an investment up front, but when you think about how much money you're spending on those handmade flowers in colors that might match your projects with finishing touches that you might like, you can buy those molds and make all the ones you want to your heart's desire for much less money. So keep that in mind. I know it's expensive, but in the long run, it's really not. It will save you way more money than you're spending. All right, you guys, I will see you tomorrow with the last 2 videos. I think I talked out today, but hopefully that would get you started if you want to play along, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.